During Gao Mingtu's tenure as the magistrate of Qinzhou, there was a young woman surnamed Su who often washed clothes by the river. One day, she crouched on a large rock in the water while doing her laundry. A strand of bright green, silky water grass floated gracefully on the surface, circling the rock 3 times. Su was inexplicably moved by the sight. Soon after returning home, she found herself pregnant, and her belly gradually swelled. Her mother noticed the change and quietly asked her what had happened. Su told her the truth, but her mother was utterly bewildered. Months later, Su gave birth to a baby boy. She initially considered abandoning him in a nearby alley but could not bear to do so. Instead, she hid him in a cabinet and raised him in secrecy. Determined never to marry, she dedicated herself to raising the child. However, the shame of having a child out of wedlock weighed heavily on her, so she never allowed the boy to be seen by outsiders. When the child turned 7, he suddenly spoke to his mother, saying, "I am growing up now. I cannot remain hidden forever. Let me leave, so I will no longer be a burden to you." Su asked where he intended to go. The boy replied, "I was never meant to live as a human. I must rise to the heavens and soar among the clouds." Tearfully, Su asked when he would return. The child answered, "Only when you are near the end of your life will I come back. After I leave, if you ever need anything, simply open the cabinet where I once stayed, and you will find whatever you need." With that, he bid his mother farewell and departed. When Su rushed outside to look for him, he had already vanished. She told her mother, who was just as astonished as she was. From that moment on, Su remained steadfast in her vow of solitude, living with her mother as their family's fortunes declined. One day, while preparing breakfast, she realized they had run out of rice. Helpless, she gazed up at the sky, unable to find a solution. Suddenly, she remembered her son's words. She opened the cabinet and, to her amazement, found fresh white rice inside. From then on, whenever she needed something, she would open the cabinet and find exactly what she wished for. 3 years later, Su's mother passed away. The funeral expenses were all taken from the cabinet, ensuring a proper burial. After her mother's passing, Su lived alone for the next 30 years, never stepping outside her home. One day, a neighboring woman visited to borrow some fire and found Su sitting alone in her empty house. They chatted briefly before the neighbor left. Shortly afterward, the woman saw a vibrant cloud of multicolored mist swirling above Su's home, forming a vast canopy. Within the cloud stood a figure dressed in magnificent robes. On closer inspection, it was Su herself. The cloud lingered in the sky for a long time before ascending higher and higher until it disappeared completely. Curious, the neighbors went to check on Su and found her dressed in splendid attire, sitting upright, but lifeless. As she had no surviving relatives, the townspeople discussed pooling their money to give her a proper burial. Just then, a young man arrived from outside. He was strikingly handsome and tall. He bowed and expressed his gratitude to the gathered neighbors. The villagers, remembering that Su had once spoken of having a son, accepted his presence without suspicion. The young man personally funded Su's funeral and planted 2 peach trees beside her grave. Then, he bid farewell to everyone and left. After taking only a few steps, a colorful cloud formed beneath his feet, lifting him into the sky until he vanished. Later, the peach trees flourished, blooming and bearing exceptionally fragrant and sweet fruit. The locals named them Su Xian peach trees, and they remained lush and thriving year after year, never withering. Officials serving in the region often took these peaches as gifts for their friends and family.